All right, good morning, everybody. Hopefully everyone had a great weekend. Today's question to think about, we're going to move on from the American strategy of raising funds, getting soldiers and people involved in this war. Now we're going to get to the actual tactics. The next few days are going to be about the battles early on in this war for the Americans, specifically against the Nazis. All right, so but the question I have for you here, for you to think about here, and again, this is just your opinion. There's no points attached to this. Just, if you want to pause this video, read the question, and then try to figure out what you would do if you were put in the political situation of Roosevelt, choosing between attacking Japan, who directly attacked us, or attacking Germany, who is, at the time of the attack on Pearl Harbor, kind of in a lull, essentially, but they're trapping Britain from resources. As Britain is an island nation, the German submarines are pretty much cutting off all resources getting to Britain. So you have Germany starving the British people, one of our closest allies, or would you attack the Japanese, the people who directly attacked us at Pearl Harbor? All right, so pause this video and tell me what you think, what would be the ideal solution here in this case. All right, so pause, and I'm going to move on here a little bit. All right. So just as you can see by the title, FDR and Churchill, the British Prime Minister, chose to meet to discuss their goals and principles when it comes to this. Now, I have the textbook page up there, 600. You don't have to get the textbooks out for this, and you don't have to go through this in terms of Atlantic Charter. I can find a copy for it, and in fact, I'll post a copy of the Atlantic Charter for you as to what some of the goals would be of each of the countries involved, Britain, France, United States. What would some of those principles be if they were to begin this war as allies? So what would they do before they meet? So it's just sort of like doing what the people in World War I did not do. They got involved in this war without knowing how they would rebuild the world after the war was over. This charter does that very thing. It helps to set precedents or principles as to how they're going to rebuild Europe and the world if they win. That's if they win. But they had to kind of find this way to say, we can win this war. Let's not make the mistakes of our predecessors and do the same thing and cause another Hitler to come up again. All right. So retaking Europe. This is the choice by FDR to help Britain, one of their closest allies, who's currently suffering from German blockade in the Atlantic Ocean, as well as around the British Islands. So they meet to discuss the charter. I'll post the charter on the Canvas today. At least you'll see that when you download all this stuff, and you can get this information and you can see kind of what that charter really is. I'll have something to download for you so you can read through that. But take a look at some of those principles, because they're very important to determine, did the United States and Britain get into this war on the right foot? Did they have a goal in mind? Did they have an exit strategy? Everyone likes to use the word exit strategy when it comes to wars nowadays. So did they have an exit strategy? Did they have a plan to win this war and then to rebuild the world after the war was over? So think about that and read through those principles. All right, so they meet to discuss retaking Europe, and the first battle begins, which is you can skip that last portion down there. General idea you can take away from the principles given. You skip that, but again, take a look at some of the principles that are in those in the Atlantic Charter. So there's three major battles. We're going to talk about one today and two tomorrow in our videos going through this here. All right. So this is the battle for the Atlantic. This is the naval battle of American and British shipping, naval vessels, military vessels, and merchant vessels that were sending goods over to Europe and going back and forth from Britain to the United States, pick up goods, sending goods from the U.S. over to Britain. So this battle for the Atlantic is a naval battle against the German U-boat. Again, the German U-boat is up again. This is our Unterseeboot. The correct way to navigate these waters, essentially to go throughout and give Britain supplies. All right. Early on in this war, Britain loses a ton of stuff. 54 million tons of stuff is sent to the bottom of the Atlantic, and it is never seen again. And that's money we're spending. It's money that Britain's spending to get goods and ships and all these different things across the Atlantic Ocean. They're not making their destination. They're not meeting their destination. All right. So we have a lot of stuff that's going on here that's wrong. All right. Now they do create convoys or groups of ships together. Out, you can see in the video I'm also going to post for today that you can watch to see how those convoys worked and what their goals were. Convoys also help to limit the losses. U-boats counted with coordinated attacks using 20 plus U-boats at once to knock out these convoys. Now, submarines are tough enough as it is to find in the water, especially when they're underwater. Now that you have 20 at once shooting at the same time, knocking out 20 ships in your convoy of like 30. That's going to be a massive loss at this point. And 175 ships are destroyed in June of 1942 alone. So this is a massive undertaking that the British and the Americans are taking up to get goods over to Britain to help keep those people fed, keep the soldiers morale up. Obviously, morale in the military is very important, especially in the time of war. But 175 ships are destroyed in 1942, June of 1942 alone. So you think about how many ships per day that is. Do that math. There's 30 days in June, most years. 175 ships divided by 30. So do that math, and you can kind of figure out how devastating it was for the Allies at this point. Eventually, they used long-range sub-hunting planes, only filled with fuel and radar detection to try to detect the submarines as far as they can. Miles away, aircraft carriers in the Atlantic are also very important. They're utilized not close to Britain, but they're used close to the United States, so those planes can have a maybe 200, 300, 400 mile advantage out to sea before they launch. All right, so these long-range sub-hunting planes were very, very effective at taking out their submarines and spotting them so they could be destroyed. All right, the new radar technologies, which you will see in this documentary that I have for you here, were also used. All right, here's a map. You can pause and take a look at this map. The area that's important to look at here is this section up here, the part that's closest to Britain, because this is the furthest that the British planes could take off from and get to before they're having to turn back to go back for fuel. So as you can see, our ships would go up here. They would try to go around up into northern parts of Ireland into Scotland, and then have the goods shipped down via railroad, or the ships would go in here. Well, this is the area of where the maximum damage was doing. I mean, if you deep sea dive on this area today, you're going to see a massive amount of ships down in the bottom of the ocean. It's going to be one of the more eerie sort of issues, or most eerie sort of dives that you would ever make if you get into that stuff. But anyways, this is the map of the United States, where it's coming from New York, or most of the stuff was taken from Halifax here in Canada and sent up to Great Britain. You can see where most of the damage was done, specifically those 175 ships in June of 1942. All right, next is your trivia question. In the second video in today's information from Canvas, you'll see a documentary. This is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen in World War II, not because it's old, using old-time footage, but because it uses more modern technology to try to negotiate these battles, to see what was done, what mistakes were made. So you have these different things here. So in the second video, in the section of video I'll have you watch, the times are 8:30 in the video on YouTube to 1950. So you can see that on the Canvas page. But when you watch these, the one historian describes German tactics for submarine warfare to deal with the convoys as it's called Rudel tactic. What does a Rudel, or what is, a Rudel in the German language? Excuse me for the typo on the screen. But what is a Rudel in the German language? And figure that out based on the video. You don't have to do any online research for this one. Just do it based on the video. All right? Everyone have a great day. I know this video went long, but when you get into these battles, sometimes I kind of get overwinded when I talk. All right? So hopefully it doesn't happen tomorrow, but have a great day. Enjoy. If you have any questions, please let me know. Have a great one. Bye.